Welcome to the podcast editing and support show. My name is Dave. Are you ready? Are you ready? Let's go. We're going to start the episode right now. Happy to have you here. Let's do this. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. Glad to have you with me. We are chatting today about how we can add some podcast coaching to the mix as editors and support people. We know we do the the ahs. We help with some of that stuff behind the scenes. But what if podcast coaching was something that, you could add to your mix and maybe open the doors to more clients simply by giving people some guidance around their podcast. Now, I would say that having a podcast will help you to stay on top of what's going on in the industry. When you don't have a podcast and you try to coach, it becomes pretty apparent that you're not possibly up to speed on everything unless you're going to do an amazing amount of research to stay on top of it all. But having a podcast would be the first thing, even if you don't do like regular weekly episodes, maybe once a month, something that just gets you in the mix where you're recording content and you're doing that. I think that would be very helpful for you. But podcast coaching is this a thing that I'm hearing quite often from people. They have a show, they've launched their show, they've done all these things, and now they're looking for support. And I think that's the big part of why I named this podcast the Podcast Editing and Support Show. Because I think it's more than just editing. It's more than just cutting out the bad stuff, slapping on an intro and an outro, and calling it a day. I think there's a lot of things we can do as podcast editors to really support the podcasts that we serve. So I want to talk to you about some features that you might want to consider adding to your services, to your bundle, as options or as part of a plan. But here's some things to consider and maybe develop a little bit more for your business, things that I'm looking at as well. So some features to add to your podcast coaching here on the Podcast Editing and Support Show. My name is Dave. Thanks for being here. Let's go. Right off the top, one of the things I get asked a lot about is helping podcasters to set goals and to set the strategy for their show. Podcasters are reaching out to me through my How to Podcast series, through my meetup groups that we do twice a week for the last 2 years over on meetup.com, through all the different shows I do, through all my guesting, through my interviews. Goal setting and show strategy are a frequent request and a frequent topic that we discuss together with podcasters. Podcasters are really looking for some support in clarifying their podcast goal. We talk a lot about knowing our why as podcasters when we first start, but our goal, what is the target? What's the finish line look like? How do we understand the goals for our show? How do we understand the whole idea of targeting our audience and knowing who our audience is, understanding what a successful metric is, and ensuring that the show is built on a solid foundation before or during production? We can be that voice of support and encouragement, knowledge for people who are podcasting who don't have time to go deep on these topics. And again, by having your own podcast, I really believe sets you up for the opportunity to not only give great content, but also demonstrate your skill set and show people, demonstrate what you can do for them by doing it for your own show. We can help our podcasters by helping them with their goal setting and show strategy. It's going to come up often. So I would really consider putting that either on your website, putting that out as an offer. It could be a standalone offer, some one-on-one time, a coffee chat, something, but where you talk about goal setting and strategy for your show. Another one would be objective feedback and content critiques. We all want people to love our show. We all want people to go, oh my gosh, the best show ever. We show it to our family and friends and they're proud of us because we're doing something different and new. They don't understand podcasting at all. But they look at you and go, wow, you're doing the thing. That's amazing. Look at you with your little mic and everything. That's awesome. That's as far as they can go with their feedback because they don't know podcasting. They may know it from a listener's perspective. They may not know about podcasting at all. And that's our sounding board for how our show was doing. Some objective feedback from somebody who's not related to you, somebody who is not your best friend, could really be helpful for you to do your show better. I had an opportunity to help a podcaster recently. They sent me their first episode, and I sent them back some feedback. And we're friends. We're friendly with each other online. Great person. Love what he's doing on a show. But I mentioned to him that when I pressed play on your podcast, you just started talking. I didn't know what the name of the show was. I didn't know if I had skipped like a couple seconds into the show and I missed the intro. Like, I don't know what the show is. I don't know who you are. You never introduced yourself once. And then when you were done, you just left. And I'm like, you can do it that way, no problem. But I think at least identifying your show, remembering that your show is mixed with a bunch of other shows on somebody's playable device. And when they go from the podcast before you to the next one in the list, which is yours, they don't know who you are. And they're maybe not even looking at their phone in the moment. So identifying yourself, having something that welcomes the listener, smart, something to think about. So they took the feedback. They were gracious. They took the feedback. They went back. They redid it. They came back. What a difference. Like, what a great episode. For their first episode, you're going to hear people say your first episode is going to suck. I challenge that. In 2025, there's so much great information out there. I don't think your podcast needs to suck. I think you need to do better and plan better and take in the knowledge and listen to people who give you feedback. But it's got to be objective feedback. It can't be loving, nurturing, stroking your ego feedback. It's got to be objective. It's got to be something that says, listen, your show could be better if you did A, B, C, and D. And that comes from experience. And again, go back to it. You having your own show gives you experience to speak from that perspective. Not having your own podcast as a podcast editor and support person, I don't know. It's like taking driving license from someone or driving instruction from somebody who doesn't have a license. They've never driven a car, but they'll tell you how to because they read a book. It's better if you know and you experienced life as a podcaster to speak life into people. So objective feedback is really important. Detailed, honest feedback on performance, on delivery, and also the content with some actionable suggestions for improvement, helping creators grow and refine their craft. It's not just about the delivery, it's about the content. So having a critique of what's being said, how it's being presented, is it just a big giggle fest between you and your guest? This nervous laughter and inside jokes and some snorting as you laugh, all that stuff, is it necessary when you're talking about a serious topic like grief? No. So maybe we can clean that up a little bit. Make it sound a little bit more professional, a little less chatty on the phone, a little more structured, focused. It's a podcast. It's a conversation, but it's not a phone conversation. It's a show. And a show needs to be entertaining. It needs to bring people in. It needs to make people feel welcome and feel like they belong. And you chatting with your best friend from college about the time that you got drunk at the bar and has nothing to do with what you're talking about on your show, we can cut that part out because it doesn't really serve the audience. It might be fun for you to relive the days, but for me as a listener, I don't know you, I don't know your guest, I don't know what's going on, and I'm leaving. One of the reasons people leave podcasts is because they're too boring. So let's take out the boring parts of your show. And I know that might seem harsh. You're like, but all my stuff is great. It's not. There's some boring stuff in there that needs to be taken out, and we can help you with that. And that's how we can be a great coach to help people to make their show better, simply by giving objective feedback and content critiques. Again, could be a standalone offer on your website, could be bundled with something else, but that could be part of your coaching offering as a support person for podcasters. Another one would be accountability and a motivational partner in podcasting. Podcasters come from all different walks of life. They're all different types of personalities. I'm working with some podcasters who have ADHD. And all they need from me is the accountability to do the thing. They're great, but sometimes they get caught up in things that just distract them and take them away from their task. And having Dave in their corner to kind of reach out and go, hey, where are we at? Oh, it's an opportunity for them to refocus, get back in sync with what they were working on. And that's all they need. That's all they need is being accountable to somebody. As podcasters, we do all of this on our own for the most part. 80-90% of podcasters are like a single podcaster doing it all. And the very small minority are those big fancy teams you see at those podcast conferences. They're not the majority. They're the minority. They just seem to have more money for booths than the single podcaster like you and me. That's why you see them so much. They have their own accountability because they have a team and they have a budget. You don't have a team. You don't have a budget. You're a podcaster who just creates content on your own. And sometimes you feel like it, sometimes you don't. Having somebody in your corner that pushes you gently and keeps you accountable, keeps you motivated, will keep you podcasting longer. And that's when you're going to see results. Having regular check-ins, coffee chats, deadlines, and encouragement to help keep creators on schedule could be one of the offerings that you provide. Way beyond editing, ums and ahs, right? Helping people stay motivated. This can significantly lower the risk of podfade and for podcast burnout. Simply by having somebody in your corner that goes, I got you. I know what you need. I'll be in your email. I'll be in your DMs. I will be calling you for the next thing. Simply working with an editor and paying them a monthly fee requires you to create content. Otherwise, you're paying them to do nothing. So, do the podcast and be accountable to somebody. And you working with a podcast editing and support person like me could really keep you accountable and moving forward with your show on those days when you don't feel like doing your podcast. Dave's waiting for the file. I need it so we can get this released. And in that, keeps you motivated. Another thing we can offer are technical skills training to help our podcasters grow. This was a request I had a while back, and it was actually really interesting. A podcaster reached out to me. She's a health and wellness coach. She has a team, but her team doesn't know how to edit podcasts. She already pays them to do all the other stuff. She wanted to add this and layer it on to her team, but they don't have the skill set to do an audio edit. They have no idea how to use Audacity or whatever platform. And they're like, can you just teach my team how to edit a podcast so that they can do it for me? So I came in, I did some virtual classes with their team, helped them understand Audacity because it's free. It's a good starting point for them. That's where their tech ability was in the moment. So we started with what was easy for them. And Audacity, the free program, was the perfect fit for this team. So we walked through how to add music, how to do fades when the music fades out and fades in, how to cut sections, how to cut sections for multiple tracks when you have a guest and the host so that everything stays in sync. We walked through it all, showed them some macros in Audacity that do some automated edits and apply some filters and things to the audio. Walk them through all of that, show them Levelator, and kind of the upload process to the hosting site. Got them all through. And over a period of time, worked with her team, developed them to the point where I could hand it off to them, and off they went. And that's it. Helping somebody with their tech skills. You can teach people how to do this because you're doing it and give them the guidance that they need to help them to improve their audio quality. Maybe it's how they are on the microphone. Maybe they just don't have good mic technique. And you can work with them to show them how to use their mic properly. There's the Yeti. Everybody freaks out when they hear that word as a podcast editor. It's actually a pretty substantial mic if you use it properly. And a lot of people don't know how to use the mic. I've had people on my show using that mic, and they sound amazing because they've dialed it in and they know how to set up their room and set up the mic for their voice. So it doesn't really matter the mic. Having a mic would be a good thing, but showing them how to use it and teaching them, because how many of us know how to use recording equipment? We're like a doctor, a lawyer, an author, a business person. We never have mics in our face unless we're on the news, but we don't have any training for this. So maybe that could be part of your offering, is how to use your mic so that they sound better. When they sound better, they record better, requires less edits, could save them some money in the long term, simply by learning how to use technology properly. How to set up the recording equipment, some editing techniques if they want to learn how to do their own editing, and some troubleshooting. What to do when. When you go to Google at 3 o'clock in the morning because you don't know how to do this and you want your episode out the next day, that's when you need help. You need somebody to be there in your corner. All of these skills help raise the overall production value of the show and the confidence of the podcasters. So offer some tech training. Share your knowledge, share your know-how, and help people get over that hurdle of, I don't know technology. I don't know computers. I don't know how to make a YouTube thumbnail on Canva. Show them the tech skills. You have them. Share them often and add them to your stack of things that you offer for your podcast editing and support business. Another thing we could do is help them to understand their audience insights and how to engage better strategically with their audience. When a podcaster looks at their stats and analytics for the first time on their hosting site, they're like, what is this? I don't understand what this is. What does that mean? Oh, I can see not only the country, I can see the state, province, and city of where somebody's listening. Oh, what's retention time? What does that mean? It's how long people listen to the episode. Oh, I didn't even know I could see that. I can see that they're listening on an Apple device or an Android device. Wow. I can see the gender of the people listening to my show. Wow. The age group. Oh. A lot of podcasters that we work with have no clue how to interpret their stats. So your knowledge of the ability to understand all this stuff and be able to teach it and demonstrate it, setting people up for success by understanding their audience insights, is something that we can offer. And I would say for the most of us, that should be like a standard part of what we do, because that's something that can be very helpful for a podcaster to stay motivated, to understand growth, to understand opportunities, and to understand the numbers. We live and die by the numbers, and understanding how to read them the right way, in a positive way, and giving them insight to what's kind of the standard norms are for podcasting, so they don't get overwhelmed by a brand new show with 5 episodes and 20 listens compared to somebody in a Facebook group with 200 million listens in 3 seconds, because they're just that amazing. There's a lot of people throwing around numbers. Let's share the real numbers and how to read them properly. You can help them through analyzing and coaching them to help them as creators to better understand and connect with their listeners through their stats and through their analytics, which can really lead them to really understanding what it means to be a podcaster and to see their growth. And this will really help them to understand their show and the trajectory of their show and where their show is headed. Teach them how to read their stats. Definitely can be a monthly check-in, quarterly check-in, twice a year, but you get together and run the numbers, prepare some graphs, prepare some charts that show them where they are going, where they're trending. That's something you can do. And if you set that up through the podcaster so you have access to their stats, then in confidence, help them understand it without giving their information to anybody else. Okay? And that's something we can do. Help your podcaster understand their audience insights and how to engage better with their audience. Something we can offer. Another thing we can do is helping them with their episode planning and developing their content for their show. Some podcasters, what they need is an outline for their show. They need to understand how to develop a story, how to tell a story. They need interview techniques, how to stop somebody from oversharing and hogging the mic as a guest, how to intro a guest, how to outro a guest. All of these steps, they haven't done this before. They're coming to you as the source of truth in all of this, and you need to have something for them to help them to develop their planning of their show and develop the content for their podcast. How to find guests, how to onboard guests, how to deal with a guest after the interview goes live. We can help them by planning out what they're going to do on their show, maybe drafting a calendar for the year or half a year so they know all of their episodes in advance, They know their topics, how to research, how to use AI to make their shows better. There's a lot of things that we can do, again, because you're doing it yourself through your podcast, right? Yes, you can take your knowledge and what you're trying in real time and apply it to their podcast and be a source of help when they want to help plan their show and plan their content. You need to be the answer. How do I do this? Oh, go ask Dave. He'll help you. Also, we can help them build their confidence and help them to overcome imposter syndrome as a podcaster. Many podcasters find it's a struggle in the beginning. It's also a struggle as you continue podcasting, as you deal with your confidence levels and overcoming this imposter syndrome that just kind of sits on your shoulder the whole time. We can be that emotional support, mindset coaching to help creators face their fears, to overcome their nerves and overcome the critics, bad reviews, and the feeling of being stuck, the feeling of being overwhelmed, the feeling of stress. Mental health for podcasters is not talked about enough. Podcasting is a source of support for people struggling with their mental health from a listener perspective, but we don't talk about the podcaster themselves. We don't talk about the struggles that the host of the show is feeling, creating the content that helps others. So in that, we can help be a supportive person, a listening ear. Unless you're a professional with the training, don't take on too much from a support profile, because there are professionals who went to school for this and they're better to serve people when in mental distress. But we can always be there as a podcast editing and support person, see the word support, to help people on those days when they need a bit of love. They need some encouragement, they need some support. That's why we're here, to help them build their confidence. We want them to show up for their show, not only for their audience, but for themselves. To be confident on the mic and behind the mic. We can help them with that. And then lastly, one of the last things we can add to our stack possibly is the marketing, promotion, and growth advice to help podcasters stay podcasting longer. Our job, our goal, is to help podcasters keep podcasting. That's why we're here. We want them to continue with their show. They are great people. They've got a great message. They're helping the world through their show. And we need to be the ones to move things out of the way to help them to do their podcast better. When your kids were learning how to walk in the living room of your house, you removed all the obstacles that they could bounce off of, hit their head on, scratch themselves, sharp corners, toys, trip hazards. You made a nice clear route for them to go and walk for the first time, right? You removed all the obstacles. As a podcast editing and support person, we're here to remove the obstacles to make people successful. So those toys, those random items, those pieces of Lego, out. We remove all that so people in podcasting can do their show and feel confident with their next steps. That's your goal, is to help people through their marketing, promotion, and helping them grow their show by giving them solid advice. Step-by-step guidance, launching, promoting, and growing a podcast, including leveraging their show notes, show titling, podcast titling, artwork, social media, collaborations with other podcasters and other services, and then listening engagement techniques to get people to listen longer. All of these things are things that we can offer. And I would really encourage you, as you look at your podcast services for your show, for what you do for podcasters, that you consider helping people with their goal setting and their show strategy. You help them with objective feedback and critiquing their content to make it better. That we're accountable and we're someone who motivates people. We're a partner with podcasters to keep them moving forward. We help them with their tech skills. We also help them to understand their audience engagement and the insights around their show. We help them with their episode planning and content development, getting that calendar ready, getting their content and a future plan for what's next for their show, build up their confidence, and help them overcome imposter syndrome, and help them through their marketing, promotion, and growing their show. All things in addition to and removal intros and outros, posting it to Apple and Spotify and all those places. We can do much, much more. It is the podcast editing and support show for a reason. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to the podcast editing and support show. Visit us at podcasteditingandsupport.com, podcasteditingandsupport.com. We would love to help you find a great podcast editor, or if you want to hire us, we would love to work with you. Podcasteditingandsupport.com. Catch you on the next episode. Take care.